Welcome to Massive Beers. My name's Matt, and we do beer stuff. That's my new thing, I guess. I say we do beer stuff. Sometimes we just do beer reviews, which is more often than not what we do. Sometimes we do other things, like podcasts, like we did with Fidens. Fidens. By the time you watch this, you've watched the other 3 reviews. You know what's going on. We hung out with Steve. He gave us beers. We're going to rip into this. This is their anniversary stout. This is Lucid Dreams. Yeah. This is their Cacao nib, coconut, and almond beer. It comes in at 12% alcohol by volume. It's an imperial stout. This beer must be kept cold. It is. And that's all we got, man. Yeah. It's a collab with the 8 State. And I know they've been working on kind of honing their stout game for a decent amount of time. It's part and parcel of what we talk about in the podcast, but I'm not going to talk about that here. You're going to go check that out. It's not up yet. It should be up this week. I'm trying to get it up this week because Fidens' anniversary, which is what this was released at, was this past week, but I have kids and stuff, and things get hard. Motor oil, son. So, yeah, we have a kind of like cerebral brain thing going on. Apparently, maybe you dream on that side of your brain. I don't know. I like the labels are. It's alright. Beer-wise, there was no head whatsoever when I poured this, but it actually generated some from me pouring it pretty aggressively. So I'm kind of happy about that. It literally looks like kind of like dessert. That's how it should be. You're talking about almonds, coconut, cacao nibs in an imperial stout, non-barrel aged. It should be very much a dessert stout. How bitter is it going to be? How not sweet is it going to be? We'll see. Heard some things I was told about this beer, but we form our own ideas. So definitely looks the part of the big old imperial stout. Let's see what the nose has. I don't think this thing's going to be like crazy bonker sweet. It really does have a little bit of kind of like reserved kind of goodness to it. You definitely get a nutty characteristic. Is it almonds? I don't know, but there's this nutty malty characteristic. Kind of blurs the lines between those two. There's a soft vanilla thing kind of going on here. Nothing too crazy. And that's kind of it. Soft little roasty notes, nothing hyper aggressive on this beer. I mean, you're talking about chocolate, sure, fine. It's a roasted malts, a bit of chocolate, okay. Almonds, yes, there's a nutty characteristic. I'm not going to sit here and say it's kind of like almonds, but there's a nutty characteristic. That coconut is absolutely in there, but everything here is a bit more reserved. It's almost like you made like Almond Joy, like that kind of thing, but you did it like in a deconstructed kind of like artisanal, like chef kind of way. Like it's just not sweet on sweet on sweet on sweet. It's like the coconut is toasted and roasted, but nothing's sweetness is added. You have a chocolate that's a semi-sweet kind of chocolate that's not milk chocolate. And you have this kind of, everything here is in place, but it's not candy-like, which is probably the coolest portion of the show, at least aromatically. Nothing here is cloying. Nothing here is over the top. It's almost like an adulty kind of reserved version of that kind of dessert. Let's dive in. Cheers, y'all. That's tasty, man. That is tasty. Because that's what it is. Really, it's a Mounds bar, but it's like, like what's that guy calls everybody curses all the time? It's his master chef, Gordon Ramsay. Not just him. If you took like a really good chef. So I fancy myself a cook, a home cook, and watch some of those shows. I'm very much like I love Master Chef, and I'm a big Alton Brown guy. I've seen him live a couple times, and he's probably my favorite chef. It's almost like one of those people made an Almond Joy. They're like, okay, You know, it's like a challenge, like, you know, whatever. What's that show? I don't watch it, Chopped. I don't watch that, but it's almost like, okay, here, chefs, like, do your version of an almond joy, but an elevated, more adulty version of an almond joy. That's kind of where this kind of lands for me. And I honestly think that's where they were going with it. And I think it's really, really cool. Because in the podcast, he was like, you know, he said not to talk about too much about it without actually having it posted yet, but it was a matter of finding a balance between sweet and not sweet. You know, a lot of these pastry stouts tend to come way too sweet. You know, it's just like sweet on sweet on sweet, and you just don't want to mess with that. You know, it's great for a couple tastes, but then you get worn out really quickly. And I've touched on this in the IPA review I did of them that'll go pretty much the same time tonight. Is that I don't think my palate's gonna get bogged down and weighted in a too sweet direction where I don't want to drink this. You know, it has this rich kind of maltiness, this bitterness that almost comes off as like a Russian Imperial Stout kind of base. And then when you add, you know, the cacao nibs on there, you get an elevated chocolate level, but nothing too overly sweet. It's very an undersweetened kind of chocolate portion of the show. The coconut is there, again, toasty, probably a little bit sweeter than what I thought it was going to be based off of the nose, but I actually think it's a good thing. It's a little bit sweeter than I thought it would be, because then you end up going into that nutty kind of marzipan-y little thing. It doesn't get nearly as sweet as marzipan, but it gives you those hints of marzipan, but it's that coconut sweetness, like the perceptual sweetness that coconut brings. Because obviously the beer itself is bringing the sweetness, but it merges with the coconut to where you think the coconut is a sweet portion of the show, to where that's your sweetness. The nutty portion of the show is not. The chocolate portion of the show is not. The roasted malt portion of the show is not. It's almost like your brain has been tricked to think that the coconut is what's bringing the sweetness. Everything else in the beer is there and being balanced out by that sweetness of the coconut. If that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. But honestly, it's really good. Like, really good. Really good. You know, you get these beers from brewers. You know, anytime you do these, I do a podcast, typically I'm leaving with beer. You know, it's just kind of part and parcel of the industry. I don't expect it, but you sit there and you talk and you leave and go, here, take a bunch of shit. It's like, okay, I'm not going to say no. And you want them to be good because you want to talk about them. This is, I tried to get the podcast up earlier. You know, this is kind of a little bit, okay, I'm going to talk about them on the podcast. Here's a little precursor. Tune in. If they suck, it sucks. These don't suck. I'm a fan. Let's put it that way. My time has been limited with Fidens to mostly hazies, and while the hazy was quite fantastic, the stout and that pilsner were definitely up there. One of the better non-barrel aged, I should say, rather than imperial. One of the better non-barrel aged beers I've had. No Russian status. Very tasty stuff. Thank you very much, Steve. Very cool. Another bottle of this. I believe this came out in their anniversary. I know it came out with their anniversary this past week. I don't know when it was released or what portion of the show it was released, but these probably can be had. You know, if I post all 3 videos tonight, you're talking a couple days removed from all them being released. So if you can track them down, that'd be awesome. And if not, sucks. But if you've had these, please let me know. I want to know your experience with Fidens. Have you been like Team Fidens for a long time? Have you had the beers that I ended up kind of going over tonight? Have you had other stuff that you've really been impressed? Have they not been your favorite brewery? All that fun stuff down there. You can do all that fun stuff in the comments, and basically, there you go. So, yeah, Mount Rushmore status, one of the better ones I've had as of late. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our review. Hopefully you're enjoying something as tasty as this. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers, y'all.